Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the La Habra Heights City Council, October 14th, 2024, to order. Okay, I take roll. Mr. Zazula?
Here.
Mr. Pespiza?
Here.
Mr. Bergman?
Here.
Engelhardt is here, and Dennis Laherty is excused. He had a really important clerical convention he had to go to for his day job. Okay, I'm going to call two public comment. Oh, it's not in here. Could you please stand and put your hand over your heart, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point, I'm just going to call two public comments because I have two cards that don't either involve a later item or the very interesting trash situation. I'd like to call Rick Brooks, please.
Do I have to turn, is this on? Okay. Rick Brooks, Skyline Drive. As the residents know, we're coming up to a pretty important election, and I'm the kind of guy that usually does my homework on things. For our own city council, there's a young lady, Cristobal Garcia, and I was kind of excited to get some young, fresh blood in our city council, but after watching the candidates, she was so unprepared, it was very disappointing. And her comments that she made online and at the meeting about the city being racist and that they don't give permits to Latinas really irritated me. I'm sorry, I sit on the Planning Commission and race has got nothing to do with how projects get approved. I think it's an insult to our staff who work very hard. If she would have done her homework, which she obviously didn't, she would know that Rafael Fernandez sits on the Planning Commission, and he's as Latino as they come, and he's probably, without exaggeration, bought 12 houses that he's fixed up and flipped, and lives in a gorgeous home that he bought that was a total dump and made it absolutely beautiful. Without exaggeration, he's probably pulled more permits than any other one individual in this city. So to make that kind of comment that because of somebody's race, the city doesn't do it, I'm sorry, it irritates me, and I think she should stand up here and apologize to the community. So for the rest of the community, I want to assure you that's not the case. A couple of measures that are up. Measure PH is for the Habitat Authority. I like the trails up there. I use them. I ride my bike. I'm all for paying a pass fee, but the more I looked into the Habitat Authority and their mismanagement of funds, I have to vote no, and I would encourage you to do the same. Since inception, I think they've received close to $100 million, and they have 25 or 30 million in reserves, but I was told it's tied up in long-term bonds at 2%. So, you know, at 6%, they'd have 1.2 million, which would be plenty to handle everything that they need. I looked at their salaries, and they have basically 2.5 employees, 3, and their salaries are over $360,000 a year. The person in charge, my understanding, makes about $180 plus benefits. So their mismanagement of funds is bad, and I spoke to someone who said that they're doing a study on animals and human reaction where they put cameras on the trails and they would see the rabbits and the squirrels run when the people came, and then they'd go back to their normal behavior. Well, I'm here to tell you they use those kind of studies to close down trails. And once they have the money, they'll start doing it. And trust me, if you don't believe me, I've been going out to the desert since I was very, very young. And the more money that the BLM got, the more trails that they closed down. So I think that the Habitat Authority needs to find another way to fund themselves. I also don't feel they do their weed abatement. They have close to 500 acres. We pay $800 roughly in fire department fee per acre, and they pay like $8,000. You know, they don't do their weed abatement right up next to your property. So they're our biggest concern. If fire starts in there, it's going to spread. So anyway, there's also 2 school bond issues for Loyola School and Fullerton. One is like $30 per 100,000. The other one's $20-some per 100,000 assessment. If y'all remember, maybe 5 years or so ago, I voted for Lowell to improve their schools and the bond money. And they spent all that money, and now they want more. Well, we're talking about if your house is worth $700,000, you're talking about another $350 a year. In my case, it's probably going to be close to $700 a year in taxes that should come out of LA County. But LA County doesn't spend their money right, so they want to just come after us with tax after tax after tax after tax. And at some point, we got to say, figure it out. So as much as I want to help the schools, I just think this is the wrong, because they spent all that money on the other bond initiative, but we're still going to pay for it for another 18 years. So this one is like 30 years that it'll be stayed on your property. Measure 4 is a $10 billion loan, and they say, you want clean water, and we're going to help fire department and all that. Well, again, our wonderful governor has, mismanaged his funds, and there's $70 billion in debt. This is a $10 billion loan that's going to have to be paid back by the taxpayers. So please do that. And lastly, our own Kyle Miller looks like he's running for the school board. And, Kyle works for Senator Archuleta. And my experience with Kyle is that he's very left-wing, which is fine. But I keep hearing about all these schools where this indoctrination of these children into socialism. If you want that, vote for Kyle. If you want boys to play in girls' sports, then Kyle's the guy that's going to get that done. I raised, 3 children, and I don't want the teachers lying to me. If one of my children were gay, I wanted to know. I have several friends that have gay children, and it's not that big of a deal. But for them to lie to the parents and not tell them, those kind of things, I'm sorry, I just disagree with. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, and please do your homework, and please vote, because it is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug McAllister from Frontier Communication.
Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for your time. I'll be as brief as I can here. I spent over a decade on your side of the dais, and I know how it feels when trying to get a meeting going forward, and so I don't want to take up too much time. But I'm here to raise awareness. It's not just Frontier Communications. It's anyone in the industry that uses copper cabling is having real issues with a thing called cable theft. It's not just a matter of the bottom line for these companies like Edison or Frontier or anyone else. It's actually comes down to homeland security. I imagine that there are folks in the audience right now, or folks who may be watching, who probably have experienced an outage of Frontier recently. It's because there have been several instances of cable theft here in your area. Basically what they do is it's low-hanging fruit, and especially as the more of the copper becomes valuable, and that is increasingly a whole lot more. They are able to go out where no one else is. They'll cut down the poles, they'll take the cabling, and in the process of that, a lot of customers are put out of service. Unfortunately, it's the customers that, we're all focused on all of our customers, but it's, the residences, It's their alarms on their homes. It's the dial tone for 911. But it's also hospitals, it's police departments, it's city departments that are impacted by this. And not a few cases, we've actually had whole military bases go down as a result of cable theft. And so I'm the vice president of Frontier Communications, and I'm trying to take a tour around California and especially hit the cities, the municipalities, and the counties where we've seen the most of the cable theft happening. It's kind of like a whack-a-mole because if we're able to get them stopped in one area, then they move over to the next area. So I'm working very hard with the sheriffs of the different sheriff's departments in the state as well to handle the county side of this. But I'm here just to bring up the awareness of what's going on, so you'll know what we're dealing with here. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time when there's an outage, it's because of cable theft, and we want to get that stopped. So I want to thank your PD and your sheriffs and all law enforcement of the region ahead of time, because I know that they will help us out with this and make sure this is a priority. It is not just an issue of inconvenience. Once again, it is literally a homeland security issue. And so we're working very hard to get that stopped. And I know you can't ask questions because this is public comment, but I'll leave my card with city manager here so that you do have any questions, you can reach out to me. But I want to thank you in advance for any help. I'm actually looking to put together a consortium of elected officials like I used to be, and to put together a team of elected officials to kind of address this on a statewide basis. And so as you gain information about all of this, if you're interested in helping me out on that, helping deal with what is a very, very serious issue, love to have a chat with you at some point. But in the meantime, that's all I have. That's why I came here tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one quick comment for Doug.
Okay.
Just a quick comment. One of your crews was out, and I challenged them because I didn't see any display on the doors or anything to acknowledge that there were Frontiers.
Really?
And I don't know if it was a subcontractor or not, so I challenged the guy, and he said, yeah, we're working for Frontier, so I knew it was probably okay then. It was during the day, so I didn't think it was theft, but I just wanted to make sure because the truck wasn't labeled. So you might, I don't know if it's a subcontractor or not, you're probably pulling in fiber optics, but...
Yeah, Brian, that's a problem now in California. Another California law got passed last year that basically prohibits utilities from allowing other companies to put their, it's California, I'm just saying, it's the reason why Frontier might not be logoing the
But I didn't see an MC number, DOT number, anything on it, so, you know.
Our contractors are required to have Frontier logos on their vehicles at all times. They're required to have badges that show they're working for us. And if they aren't doing that, it's either it's something that I need to deal with, and so I appreciate you hearing about that, or they're folks who are trying to steal cable.
And we're out there trying to help you.
I appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that up, because I did forget. There is also, and this is for the community at large, we're offering a $5,000 reward to anyone who could help us catch somebody who's doing this. And so there's information about that on our website, and I can also bring that information to the city manager as well. But this is pretty serious. It's serious enough for them to send me out to have a chat with all of you, and I'll be doing that probably for the rest of my life because there's a lot of you to talk to. So in the meantime, thank you for your time.
Okay, at this point, we're going to pause. I have no other cards anyway other than related to item 14. So we're going to move item 14 forward in the agenda, and we will start with the normal procedure, which is staff will explain the item before we go to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor, and everybody tonight for you. This item is related to our transition in trash from Republic Services to Ware Disposal. So beginning in the beginning of the month, we made that transition over from Ware to Ware from Republic. So you have seen people have cart service. They've been out swapping out those carts, delivering carts, and they're in the process of picking up the Republic carts at the moment as part of that transition process. Also, the building has gone out. I know we've had a lot of calls and comments and questions related to some of the billing, which is probably why we have a good audience tonight for that. A little bit earlier tonight, we have been spending quite a bit of time with Ware and our city attorney's office going through some of those comments and concerns, some of the things that the residents have been seeing bill related, so we could try to work on a plan and a process to resolve those. Ultimately, when we began this transition with Republic, they sent us their database of data. So, that is what we and Ware have been working off of, is that process to use that data that should be what everyone had previously. So what level of service you had, the number of bins you had, if you were on Scout, if you were a borough, all of those things is what Ware collected, and we were able, and then started their invoicing off of that. So you started seeing bills go out. First few rounds of questions we got was related to time frame. Everybody was used to Republic billed in 2-month increments, Ware bills in 3-month increments. If you have cart service, if you have bin service, a dumpster service, it's different. They bill on a monthly process for that. As we've been working through this process, some of that is related to the people with dumpster service and bin service. So those were put in as like commercial accounts. So as residents, you need to be able to do recycling and organic recycling or organic waste treatment. So all your yard waste is now called organic recycling. Is that part of it? So you need additional containers for those rather than just the dumpster. In the past, Republic had everybody just commingled everything in the dumpster. All of those things are supposed to be going in appropriate waste streams. So recycling needs to go into a recycling cart that gets sent to the recycling component of it. Yard waste goes to a different component, and your trash goes to a different component. In the past, trash may have not been picked up in that method. As we move forward, we're moving forward and getting us back on the right track, moving in the right direction where all of the correct waste streams should be going to the right waste streams. In the past, you've seen one truck, especially of those of you that were on borough service. You would have the one truck that would come by and they would pick up your trash, your recycling, and your green waste all in one truck and take it away. Moving forward, starting right now, Ware is just in the process of getting the trash picked up. So cans exchanged, trash picked up. They're continuing the same process that Republic had been in the past. Starting next month, you'll start to see them come in a different manner. They're going to come out, they're going to pick up one waste stream, they're going to take that back and then come back and pick up the other 2 waste streams as well. So things will be going back into the appropriate waste streams, which is why it's very important for us to start looking at what goes where. So things will need to go to the appropriate container, so that way we can make sure that recycling goes with recycling, trash is trash, and your yard waste or organics, as it loves to be called today, all go into an organics container for that. I know it's going to be a bit of an adjustment for our residents, as that hasn't been the history here with our waste collection in the community. So we'll be making that transition as part of it. The other part we've heard a little bit is some of the organics and the waiver that we have from CalRecycle. So the waiver is related to food waste organics. So the waiver was, we went through a low population waiver with the state because we have a lower population. They granted us a 5-year waiver to implement the organic recycling. That's related to your food waste and your food scraps recycling today. That's always traditionally gone into your trash. Now, as we've moved forward, the state is requiring those things to go into your yard waste. So all of your food waste and those things would go with your yard waste, which would then be taken to a facility and composted. And that's the waste stream that would normally go through. So that waiver is related to that. As we move forward with Ware, as we went through the agreement process, we looked at doing that moving forward today. So we're going to be starting to implement that now, related to your food waste and your food recycling. So food scraps and things like that should start to go into your yard waste containers. So that's where we're going to start to see things move in that direction here in the near future, as we start making some transitions related to waste streams, container sizes, and containers that people have. We're moving those ways. We've also heard a lot of people that have the bins have been a big component of it. If you have a dumpster service, you also need a recycle cart and a yard waste cart. Those in their system, being able to have dumpsters or bins is a commercial account. So those two extra things get charged at a much different rate than a residential rate. So we've been working with Ware on a way to resolve that issue and look at us as the Heights. We're a little more unique where we have a lot of residences that have dumpster service and bin service, a way to not charge them an additional $88 and $98 for a recycling can and a yard waste can. So we've been working with Ware and City's Attorney's Office as we've been going through the agreement and fine-tuning things, as we knew we would be having to make some fine-tune adjustments as we kind of move through this process and make this full transition to it. So that is one thing to consider. We are going to be looking at a different way to do that. So we've had those discussions with Ware, and Mr. Ware is here as well. So I'll throw it to him in a second to let him explain a little bit more about that. But we're going to be looking at your dumpster service and probably your traditional 3-cart service. So your 3-cart service is, instead of being charged $88 and $98 for those bins, that 3-cart service is $32. So there's going to be a significant savings in there to put you back into a residential component. So not a commercial amount, not a commercial account that way where you're falling back into a residential account. We've also had a lot of people look at what they use that bin for, if it's mostly yard waste that they're using it for. So we have large properties, a lot of people have a lot of green waste. If you look at that bin as being green waste, the cost of that container is also less than if it's just a trash container. So it's also working with our residents as we move through that process to kind of figure out, what are you using that container primarily for? Is it primarily for trash? Is it for recycling? Or is the majority of what's going into it yard waste? To look at, maybe you can use organic container, which is a little bit of a less cost to the residents, and move you to a different cart service that way. So we're in that process of trying to make those transitions today. For that, they were here today for the meeting. You can see a lot of residents were in the lobby. They were here a little bit early, talking to Manny, who's a route supervisor, and Kevin, who heads up their customer service side, and kind of asking those questions, going through their bills, looking at that. We'll also ask, people to look at your bills, because you may have additional carts on your bill that you may not have ever used before. We've also had people call and say, hey, they dumped me 3 green waste carts, and I have never had 3 green waste carts. We only need 1. So it's some of that is that transition, and that the data we receive to be able to start the process from may not have been perfect. So we're in the process. We're working with them. They're going to be working with the residents, especially like right now we're in that transition period, November, December, and fine-tuning those things and looking at, are there ways to spread the cost of the scout service out, looking for residents that want to move to the senior discount, use the smaller containers, and move to a senior discount, or move to a rollout type service from there. So ourselves, we've been probably speaking with Tom, myself, or Grace primarily, and also working with Ware to make those changes happen for that. So those kind of the things that we've been in evolution, is like, this is going to be tomorrow, start of the 3rd week of trash pickup with Ware. So over the first couple of weeks, those are some of the things that the moving parts and pieces to this transition that we've been working through. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Ware. He's right here behind me, and you can touch a little bit on some of that transition part, working with residents on determining cart levels and things that you need to do, and what best services you and the best way to do it. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Ware.
Hi, good evening, Council. Thank you, City Manager. Jay Ware with Ware Disposal Company, the General Manager. I want the residents in the city to know that we appreciate the opportunity to service the city, and this transition has effectively started 2 weeks ago today, and today was our start of our 3rd week of actual solid waste and recycling pickup. We are still in the middle of our transition. We have, as of today, it appears that we have completed all cart transitions for regular residential customer accounts. That's accounts that don't require scout services. And we have removed almost all of the Republic containers from services that we've been able to find or locate that have been placed out for service. If you still are entertaining Republic carts on your property and you're getting regular trash services with our carts, please place those carts out for service so we can go ahead and collect them, as they will not be in service anymore, and we will not be servicing them anymore if you've got carts from our company. We have also been working on exchanging out the dumpsters now for any customers that have a dumpster. The dumpster service is quite a bit different in your city than it is in many of the other cities that we service throughout the Southland. Dumpster service is generally what we characterize as commercial service. And during the transition, billing information and data we were required, as required by the contract, every residential customer will need to maintain a trash, recycling, and green waste container. The challenges that the dumpsters present is that they've always been set up for trash services under the for residents, and residents have been able to mix it. What we have been able to identify with many of the customers that we've been meeting with is that you no longer need a 3-yard dumpster. What you need is most likely a 2-yard dumpster for yard waste. That seems to be the what most residents with dumpsters are needing because of the amount of yard waste that they're producing. So that reduces your bill from a 3-yard down to a 2-yard, and then because you're using it for yard waste specifically, you can actually get a further reduction in cost. Then what we'll do is add on a trash and a recycling cart, and then you will be not only compliant at your resident, but your rate will not change from the or it'll be around the same rate you were paying previously with the previous provider. There are over the next 2 weeks, the remaining customers we will be transitioning are your Scout and Borough service customers that have carts. So those will be the last of our transition, which will be happening over the next 2 weeks. That'll be for any customer that we actually have to go up into your property and then and service your carts, and those will be done over the next 2 weeks. So that'll be the last of the transition. It's important that every resident in this city understands that we are still in the middle of our transition, and we are going to work 100% with you to assist you in finding the best rate for you, help you customize your service to make sure that it is effectively the least expensive cost option for you. And my team is dedicated to working with each and every resident that has customized service to do just that. We just simply ask that you work with us during this transition and understand that the information we were provided, while it was provided to us as the information that the other company had prior to us having it, it was presented to us as a valid information. We have found that it is not the case, because your billing would obviously show that what we were provided was what you were billed for. And we have been able to work with many of the customers that need carts removed or need an extra cart. We'll adjust your invoices, and we will get your invoices corrected. And we are doing so as fast and quickly as we can, and trying to make sure that you have the most effective and efficient service we can. It is difficult. Change is always difficult. We understand that, and I understand that just as well. And I sit here today, and I know how a resident feels when things are changing, and so so does my staff. And we understand that this change is difficult, and that there are new laws, rules, and regulations that every one of us is faced with. We may not like it, but unfortunately it is what has been set upon us, and we are all working together, and we all need to work together to do the best we can to do these to make these changes happen. And we are going to do everything we can to try to make it as smooth for you as possible. We know that this last couple of weeks has not been as easy as possible, but we will iron it out over the next couple of weeks, and my team is dedicated to working with you, and we will, in fact, get out to your property if necessary and help you to design the best service around your needs. And with that, I will open for any questions that the city or staff may have.
Did the attorney have any comments at this point? Mr. Litvin?
the attorney. I find that funny. No, just to the point, I think the main takeaways are that during the transition, we required Republic, the old provider, to provide sort of what everybody was getting at the time, and a lot of that info was wrong. So they've been trying to get it correct to each of your individualized situations, and that's taken a while. Point number 2 is, as Mr. Ware indicated, everybody might have a different or a specialized way to make most efficient and most cheap your particular needs for trash service. And you should just call them, and they have committed to help figure that out. So do that. That's my strong legal advice. Call them and figure out what is the cheapest program for you, and they can help you do that, and they're required to do that in the contract. And I did see one email from an individual, very well-written email, about a legal issue about whether the city's franchise fee, which we collect as part of the franchise agreement, is a hidden tax on the residents. And it is not under the law. That money comes from the general revenue from the franchise and is reflective of the reasonable value of the franchise that is being given to the franchisee. And actually in section 3.2 of the contract, it talks about that. It's a permission to use the city streets in a particular way. And under the case law, that is not deemed a tax. So I wanted to make sure the community knew that the franchise agreement is in compliance with all applicable laws. And I think those were the legal questions, unless the mayor had something else for me, for the attorney.
No. Is that the presentation then, and I should open it to questions from the council?
I think so, right? Yeah.
Does any member of the council have any questions of any of these gentlemen?
So I just want to make sure that I understand one of the comments that you made, Mr. Ware, is that for those of us that are on scout service, the transition has not happened yet. Is that correct? Because I can tell you the 8 homes that are on my tracts all still have the Republic cans. As a matter of fact, most of them didn't get picked up last week. Number 2, I approached your manager at the park last week and told him that your folks were just dropping cans we have about a quarter-mile long driveway, and they were just dropping cans at the entrance. I gave him a specific address. I'm kind of disappointed those cans are still sitting there today. So when a council member goes up and talks to your folks about an issue, I kind of expect that to get resolved. If my issues aren't getting resolved, I don't know how other people's issues are going to get resolved.
Well, we apologize for that happening, council member. The carts that were delivered were probably delivered by our third-party container delivery group, and there must be an address that they dropped them. I can tell you that the carts that are at the 5 locations that you're speaking of have not been transitioned yet and won't be transitioned until next week and the week after.
So just to be clear, carts are, because I think I understood what you were saying. I just want to make sure I understand it so I can tell my neighbors what's happening. If we're getting picked up by the big truck, that transition has happened. All those Republic carts are gone, the Ware carts are there, and all those folks should be good, right?
The majority, yes. If there's stragglers out there, we're resolving that.
Okay, and then number 2, for those of us that are on scout service that take the small truck, that transition is happening this week or next?
It'll start happening next week and the week after.
Okay, so by the first week of November, it sounds like, there should be no more Republic carts?
That's what our goal is.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
My apologies, council member. Can you just give me the street name, please?
Street name's not going to help you because it's Hacienda, but the address that I gave him was 38. So the carts are at 3900 Hacienda, which is the entrance.
That's fine. I'll take it from there.
All right.
Mr. Bergman?
No, I'd just like to hear public comment, and then we could maybe open it up after that.
Okay, I have 3 cards. If there's anybody else, could you just give a card to Christina? Okay, we'll start with Claudia Schalschlin. Sorry.
Mayor Pan, my name's Claudia Shacklin. I've lived upwards of 55 years here, and this trash service has been a complete disaster for me. I didn't have trash pickup for 3 weeks. I have piles and piles of yard waste on my acre. I'm probably going to have to haul it off myself. I'm going from the 4 trash cans to now 2 extra for this recycle and trash. Everybody up here has an acre or more. There's no functionable way to not have at least 4 or 5 yard waste cans if you keep your yard up. And so now my cans are being increased from 4 to 8, I think the lady said when I called over there at Ware. And thank God for Grace, wherever she is. She's been trying to help me. I have no technology. I'm upwards of 70 years old. I have no technology in my house, no internet, so everything has to be done via mail or talking to a person or whatever the case is. And when you talk to people outside, as I went up there and found Mr. Manny, he kept telling me to go online and online. Well, I don't have the capacity to go online, and there's lots of other elderly people older than me that don't have technology. So therefore, they're in the same situation I am. The senior citizen cans was a bait and switch, because I called Vanessa at Ware and said I want the senior citizens. I give my recycle to church and donate the money there. So that can is wasted. So I have 1 bag of trash, maybe, and then I need the containers for the yard waste. Well, you can't have the senior package if you're going to get other cans for the yard waste. So that was misconstrued, misdirection, deceitful in my opinion, because I'm sure there's other seniors up here that are going to want that, but you can't put all the yard waste in 1 little can from the senior citizen, but you can't add any cans and pay for it if you have the senior citizen cans. So that little program is useless pretty much for all of us up here, and 95% of the people have an acre or more. So my trash wasn't picked up for 3 weeks, as I said. A kid brought down 2 trash cans. I never had 2 trash cans. I only had 1 trash can. And what I don't understand is why they just didn't send a simple paper out when they sent us a bill already, when we don't even have the cans. I got a bill, though, and just send a paper to tell them what cans that we would like to have, so that the people could have just said, this is what we need, instead of all this tobacco and guessing and dropping off and the wrong thing and the frustration of it all. So I'm a pretty even-keeled person. I'm pretty easy to get along with, but I've made 4 trips to the city in the last 2 weeks, and honestly, I'm just tired of fighting everybody. Then I wanted to know about the bin, so I went to the city. When that driver brought the bin in from a neighbor that has a bin at their yard, I went and looked in the bin, and they had every kind of trash that you can imagine in there. Nothing was separated, and it was all in the bin. So when they say you got to have a recycle, you got to have this, you got to have that, I went and looked in those bins when they brought them there, and they had every kind of trash in there, everything. So who's telling the truth? Who's doing what? Who's getting away with what? Because according to him back here that just spoke, you got to have a separate this, a separate that if you have a bin and that. Well, I went up there myself, and I looked in it myself because my eyes tell me what I see, and I saw they had every kind of trash imaginable in there. It was all mixed up and everything else. So, see, I'm to the point where I don't know who to believe. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's fact. I don't know what's real. And now they're going to come down our driveway, our private driveway, which is a 1/4 mile, which is so fragile as it is. They have sent that big truck down 2 times. Never in my 55 years of living up here have we ever had a huge dump truck come down our private road, which the city doesn't pay for, the people have to maintain. But yet they're sending these huge trucks down, doing so much damage to very fragile roads, which then sends me into orbit because I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happening here? I can't stop it. And I'm looking at the road being destroyed right before my eyes. And they are going to start coming down 3 times to pick up these 3 different things. So instead of 4 times a month now, we're having a trash truck down 12 times on these private little rickety roads that were not made for huge trash trucks or 12 scout trips in 1 month.
Oh, thank you very much for...
It's very frustrating.
Okay, I hope you'll continue your communication with Mr. Ware and his representatives.
And the other thing is the runoff from water. So I had Rafferty to my house, and the man at the corner has got his water diverted out to the road. My place was flooded at my acre. I'm at the bottom, and it's so much destruction. And that's another issue that I have is, you guys implement the rules. The rules need to be followed, and they need to be, when people are diverting water out onto the road, that is illegal.
Okay, I'm sure Mr. Rafferty will deal with that situation, or I hope he will.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
thank you.
okay.
We have a lot of, thank you very much for coming. Lemmy Fromm. Oh, Feshu, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Hello, Council. My name is Lemmy. I live on Hacienda Road. From my personal experience, this rollout has been a complete disaster. We got charged $343 on our first bill for some cans that we don't even have yet on our property. The dumpster that we have went up in price, obviously. The scouting service, which is almost $80 a month now, we've never had that before. And now I'm paying for 2 extra cans of recycling and a green waste, which I don't even have on my property yet. So I understand Mr. Ware said that it takes a while to get all this done, and I totally understand that. And we had Manny come by the house as well, and he, which I believe is your operations manager, he was a pleasure to deal with, but just the issue's not with him, the issue's with the company or the rollout. And also the contract. I don't think it's fair that as a resident of La Habra Heights, we should be charged in a commercial or as a commercial business for a 3-yard container. I mean, like the resident before me said, almost all of us have an acre of property. And for us, we don't really throw away our green waste. We try our best to compost it, to be as green friendly as possible. And if we have any plastic waste, we take it and we take it down to the disposal house ourselves, so we can at least get some money for it. So if the city can come up with some kind of plan where we get a waiver for the plastic and the green waste, if we can prove that we don't have it, I think that would be nice to save some money, because it's just a shock. Everything else is going up in price. I don't think it's fair that, or maybe we should have been involved in the process of or at least notified ahead of time on the price increases that we were going to face, because it's just, for me, going from $148 with Republic, my last bill, to $350, that's crazy. And just like everything else, we have to, with insurance and with everything else, everything's getting so expensive that you have to buy cheaper or buy less insurance to have the same, or less insurance for the same price. We have to have less trash services for a bigger price. Like he was saying that we should go to a 2-yard container. And keep all the cans as well. I think it's crazy. It's not fair. And if there can be some kind of process in place that we can come to terms where, we don't pay that much more. I understand that there will be a price increase, but almost, 150% is a little bit out of control. So maybe the council or, whatever we decide today, there's some relief or some kind of plan. But I think for sure the scouting service needs to be looked at, because the $80 scouting service on top of the $154 fee, on top of the green waste and the blue waste can, it's unmanageable. I mean, we can't. It's too much. So if I hope we can come to some kind of plan today. That'll be awesome. But yeah, just airing out my grievances, because it's getting too expensive. I mean, that's just crazy. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Lynn Norsworthy.
I see a little bit. I talked to Manny earlier, and he straightened out the commercial versus non-commercial and all that. And how I'm going to explain to my 85-year-old mother that she's going to have 3 trash cans in the kitchen to cook dinner is going to be hard. But the problem is now, the responsible horse owners that are cleaning our corrals every day and getting rid of our horse manure are now being punished, because we're paying $45 a can for horse manure to be removed. That's also going to a green waste facility. But apparently they charge more to get rid of the already half composted grass, because that's what the horses eat, grass or corn. That's it. And so everyone's going to end up dumping their manure on their property. And then we're going to have the fly issue all over, and the smell. I use shavings, which causes more trash with my horse manure, and to cover smell and to make it smell pretty. That's all gone to hell, because now it's going to go back in my yard. And then green waste, I don't fill a green waste can every week. But once a month, when my gardener comes and does weed abatement, which I'm having to do every month because we've got weeds growing year round, I was filling up a dumpster once a month. But I don't use it for 3 weeks. So are we going to be able to get a dumpster, once for one time for a 1 week trip? And how much is that going to cost? I don't have. Somebody sent me a itemized change of what my bill's going to be, but it's not itemized. It just says the new bill's going to be $184. It doesn't explain it. It's not itemized on what each can is and all that. So my biggest thing is the speed of the trucks. They are flying. They come around a corner and there's a car there and they wail on their horn. I was riding my horse the other day, not too far from a stop sign, and I could hear him coming behind me fast. And I got an old guy, he's a good boy. Right when they were barreling by me, and as soon as they got next to me, they buried the brakes, and then they went, wah! And my 20-year-old horse scared him to death, and he doesn't scare from anything. He jumped. Luckily, I'm a rider. I stayed with him. And then they got to the stop sign, and they rolled on through. So they've got to slow down. There's people walking their dogs up here. We don't have shoulder to be on. And the roads are not even wide enough for a trash truck and a car. They've got to slow down or they're going to hurt somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Ueno?
Tina Ueno, Mayapan Road. Good evening, Council. Long time no see. I've had to come out of retirement. So I'm speaking for all of the people on Mayapan Road. We're on a private driveway. There's 3 of us down there. We have a new young couple. Claudia Shacklin is at the end and I'm in the middle. I too received a bill that started off at, I paid $165 every 2 months, and I'm now at $47.99. So apparently the story says is that they came down and they scouted our road and they scouted our trash cans, and I understand that, and I'm all about change and transition. I manage practices for a living, so I understand this. What I don't understand is nobody came to the attention of the people who signed this contract, because this was not a we the people. This was not. brought to the people, because the people would not have approved a contract like this, because the definition of what a private road, a private driveway, access, valet service is not what's happening. I've spoke to 3 people on the phone, and I've had 3 totally different answers on what my service should be, okay? There's nobody understands our demographics here, and we are very, very unique, and I respect your company, and I respect my private road. But we had a full-size trash truck come down our little private road, and they had to come into my driveway. The kid was good. He got himself in and out. But he can't do that. I did get to be told that I did not, on my private road, have to spread my, what do they have me on? It's 14 cans. I only need 10 cans, but at 3 feet a can all the way across the road, I'm gonna have to be into 2 other properties. So I did get that they're not gonna do that. I will say that when the trash truck came down, it did dump all of the trash cans in one truck. So am I gonna get scout service, or am I gonna get a trash truck? Because that trash truck is not gonna make it down the road. I have tried to ask, and I have not gotten an answer yet. I spoke to Manny tonight, and he says he's gonna come out tomorrow. The senior citizen discount, I did work with my neighbor on that, and I got her bill down that if she has, because she is going to only have 1 trash, she literally has 1 bag of trash, that it is, what she was trying to explain is that if she gets the senior discounts for the 3 small trash cans, she can't, where if you look on the page of their page for what we get, it states that the senior citizen discount is a few dollars less, but they get a substantially smaller trash can, but that she can't add larger trash cans for our green waste. That's not an option, so you have to have big trash cans all the way. On their website, it states that our residential cart scout service, which we have not received yet, is $54.55. Manny says that's not the same. And then could somebody explain to me what the extra pickup cart service is? Because now when I'm on the phone with them, they're telling me for every cart extra that I have from my 3 carts, it's a $4 additional fee. Is that correct? So do we all know that? So I have 3 cart service. For every additional cart that I have to have for my trash to be taken away, I have to pay an additional $4. Is that, then do I have to pay the $41.80 on top of that? So now the bill that I got for $477.99 is really now going to be $570. I went from $165 to $550.
Wait,
Right. So I'm aware of how the billing states. So what I don't understand is when they're trying to help me lower my bill, they also stated, Manny said tonight, that the definition of my private road, quote unquote shared driveway, will be in the discretion of what he and the contract decides. Isn't that supposed to be what my real estate description describes? Because it is a shared driveway. And it's an ingress and an egress, and we pay for it. So how again, is that supposed to help us? Norm? Right? So these are questions that, you know, I feel I respect everybody's time. I was a volunteer up here for 20 years. I still thank you all still for sitting on the council, but I'm not sure that the council was really involved in who signed our contract for the people. So I'd like to have some answers pretty soon.
Follow up on that. Thank you. Sabrina Valenti?
Valentine. Sabrina Valentine. I'm a 27-year resident of the Habra Heights, 352 Skycrest Road. Can I verify what Scout Service is? Because I'm not sure what that is.
Scout Service is when a smaller vehicle comes up to your property onto your private driveway, not off of a private road, or it may be off of a private road depending on the situation, and services your container, your dumpster, brings it down to either the big truck or actually has to do specialized services using a specialized vehicle.
Okay, so I don't do it, but my husband brings the cans up to the road. It's not a private driveway, it's a city street. Then I would not have to pay for Scout Service, correct?
That's correct. There are many things. There are many residents that have been getting services that either you have not been paying for in the past, based on what we can identify, and so we are working on those situations. That's one of the reasons why we are still working on customized services for many customers. There are many areas where customers on a private road can use a shared area where they can put containers together. And then there are also customers that have been obtaining services, Scout services, that don't necessarily need it. They can just pull the carts right out to the street so the larger truck can service them without, just as any resident in the city could be doing. We are here to work with any resident and be able to identify for you options. Also, we can work with residents that are on shared driveways, private streets, where we can identify localized areas where residents can get together and put their particular carts in one specific area and share an area where all the services can be done on that particular area. So we aren't even going up a huge private driveway or a private street. And as I said, we're in the middle of a transition. There are many pieces of information that weren't provided to us from the previous contractor. It's also important to understand that the information we were provided, such as this young lady was talking about, you like that, young lady? We have no idea. So she may or may not she may have had 10 carts, and they may have only been charging or providing us information on 6 carts or 3 carts. We're just now identifying, for instance, that she needs less or more carts. We're going to work with her and anybody else to try to bring their bill down. And I understand that the cost of her containers may go up, but there may be a solution for that by using a dumpster for maybe her yard waste. And then she only needs a trash and a recycling cart to go along with it. There are solutions, but you have to allow us the time to work on these solutions, and we will assure you that we're going to be working on this over the next 30 to 45 days. We are here to work with all of us.
I don't want to be penalized for that because I wasn't talking.
No,
so I just want to clarify, did you say that all the residential cans have been changed that are not on Scout Service?
We are working on, I believe that most of them have been changed out, yes.
Okay, well, I live on 352 Skycrest Road.
And could you give your presentation and then maybe discuss your specific situation?
Okay, because our neighbor has their cans changed, but all the other people on our street did not. And then when I called the city, because your website had the wrong rate listed for the Habra Heights, and the last time I checked, it hadn't been updated. There hadn't been a new rate sheet put on. And it would like you to take ACH withdrawals, because right now you only take like debit card or credit cards, and those have expiration dates. So I would like you guys to use ACH, because then it comes directly out of the checking account, and then you won't have to worry about when the card gets expired and then your bill isn't paid. You know what I mean?
There are 2 different options you can work with through ACH and your bank. Your bank can do a direct payment to us from your bank.
I was told by your cashier that that's not an option.
You can sign up for ACH payment, or you can also do direct payment through your bank.
I specifically said ACH, and they said, no, you guys only take credit or debit.
I'm sorry, you were provided the wrong information, but I'm letting you know now that we can address that with you tomorrow.
Okay, and then my understanding is this is a 10-year contract. Okay, is there like a trial period? I mean, that seems like a long time. You know, like I wouldn't buy something that I haven't used.
Wait, excuse me. Can you just limit your conversation to your comments?
Oh, I'm not allowed to ask questions? I'm only allowed to comment? Okay, well, I think it's very foolish then to have a 10-year contract when you haven't even used the service yet. And then...
we might have the attorney respond to that later. If that's...
Okay. And then I just feel it's a little ironic, since Ware boasts that it's all woman-owned business, and you came. I just feel that's very ironic. And I want to give a shout out to the Habra Heights Fire because I fell on the side of the road and broke my ankle, and they came and picked me up. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Brooks. I thought you had to leave early.
I did, Mayor, but I think this is important. I wasn't going to speak on this issue, but after hearing you speak and Mr. Ware speak, I'm more confused than I was when I first got here. I, too, have a 3-yard dumpster and got a bill for $350 from $148. I specifically talked to 2 city council members, and they both assured me that was a mistake. Now, in hearing the conversation tonight, if I understood Mr. Ware correctly, he said if you have a 3-yard dumpster, you're a commercial account. And on top of that, you pay for the dumpster, but then they want you to have a recycling and a green waste. And that's another $70 or $80 for one of those cans. Now, if I'm a regular 3-can person, it's only $10 for a can, but yet I'm going to be charged a commercial account. So, Mr. Ware, I want you to know I'm a resident. I'm not a business. I'm not a commercial account. And if you keep trying to charge me as a commercial account, you won't like me. Okay, this isn't open. This is public comment.
You misunderstood me.
No, this is
you
public
misunderstood
comment.
me.
This is public comment. So
comment.
I am commenting, but I'm not going to be interrupted. So I need this to be clarified as to what it is. And I too called in. First, I talked to some gentlemen that were out at the house and said, look, if that's the case, just take the dumpster away. Oh, we can't do that. You have to call in. He handed me a paper, gave me the number. I called in, I talked to the lady, she goes, well, if you want 3 cans, it's this, if you want an extra one, she went through the whole thing. I said, okay, well, let's just do that. And she said, no, you can't, now you have to email. So I talked to 2 people, then I called in like they tell me to do, and now I have to do an email to make a change? I mean, with Republic, I'd call and go, hey, I need an extra pickup, and they'd come and do it. I need a 30-yard roll-off when I was building my house, and they delivered it on the phone. So I think customer service is going to need a lot of work here, but please, tonight, if you all could, clarify what it is about if you have a 3-yard, what are the costs, and what are they going to be? Because if it's not commercial service, as many people besides myself are being billed, then we need to know what that is and what our bill is going to change so I can make a decision whether I'm going to keep the 3-yard dumpster and go back to cans. And I don't think anybody in this city has 3-yard dumpster because they have 3 yards worth of trash. Everybody, you know, I have 80 trees on my property, so I fill it up with green waste 90% of the time. You know, it's just my wife and I, we have 1 or 2 bags of trash. But anyway, please get it clarified on the record tonight. Okay, I almost spoke at one of the other meetings when you were negotiating the contract and you said, oh yeah, well they'll come up for free if you have a steep driveway or you're a senior citizen. That's not the case. Okay, when you talk to them on the phone, oh no, if you want a senior citizen rate, you got to go to the little tiny cans. And then it's a case-by-case basis. There's no clear description in your contract that you guys negotiated, Norm, to, you know, to have it. So case by case doesn't work because nobody's going to qualify. So anyway, please tonight get the rates clarified so that everybody understands what they are going to be and what they should be so that you don't have to keep going through this every month. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the public cards I have. So I'll pull the item back to the council. I don't know if the attorney wants to make any comments at this point. Well, Can you just,
I'll give you another card.
I think the best way to go forward, I know this is a little burdensome, is to write, what I would like you to do is write your questions down, give me a copy over the internet, or I'll get it, and then give it to Mr. Ware.
But the community is here for public comment. We're all here for the same thing. I have personally spent an hour and a half with my neighbor trying to clarify her bill, and I've called and spent hours on the phone that I don't have myself on the phone with Ware. I just need an answer. I will take the transition, I will take my trash building up, I will take it, but they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth right now, Carol.
What I'm suggesting is we have to keep the meeting rolling. If you could write your questions down, send everybody on the council a copy and send Mr. Ware, and then we can work on the written question, because it's too hard to do it verbally, and it's not precise enough. At least I don't quite understand the situation. Maybe the others do.
Is your trash getting picked up?
Yes.
And has your bill changed?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have cans or do you have a dumpster?
Okay, this isn't a question and answer period. Tina, can you please?
Okay, well,
you've had your public comment.
Don't you owe this to the community?
Could we just kind of get calmed down, and
well,
I'll be happy to work with you.
I'll take Mr. Ware outside.
Thank you. All right, this is a public meeting. We need a little bit of, I understand people are upset, and I appreciate it, and it's very frustrating, but let's just try to keep it organized, if that's okay with everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll pull it back to the council now. And I didn't know if the attorney wanted to say anything. You don't have to.
If there are any specific legal questions, I can answer them. I think a couple people asked questions. One was about the term of the franchise agreement being 10 years. That's actually pretty low in the industry. Usually franchise agreements build in the infrastructure costs over a longer time period. So that is not abnormal and is actually quite short for franchise agreements. As far as the cost, I know there was a multi-tiered process where many companies were interviewed and where was the lowest cost. And there were multiple public hearings in front of the city council about the contract when it was approved. So as far as the legal formalities about the process and the contract itself, they went forward in a very public way. So those would be my comments.
Thank you. Pulling it back to the council now, does anyone have any, want to say anything, or?
Maybe we can just go back, and I know Mr. Ware wanted to clarify the issue about the commercial account for the bin and then the incremental costs associated with, with the dumpster, and then the incremental costs for each of the bins. I thought we had that resolved, that they were not commercial accounts and there was a different billing mechanism that you were going to use. So maybe we can just clarify that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, I believe that there was some confusion, or maybe I misspoke or somebody heard me differently than what I stated. When we initially took over the agreement, there is a commercial bin rate. Customers that had commercial bins were assessed as commercial customers, as we would in a city with commercial dumpsters. However, we found that these were residents. So we are working on adjusting the commercial rates for the recycling and the green waste cart to a residential price for green and recycling. We are working through that as we speak, and we are making those adjustments on people's invoices. We are also trying to assist customers in figuring out what is in that dumpster. If it is a 3-yard dumpster and it's at a resident, they're obviously not creating 3 yards worth of trash bags. We understand this. They're not obviously creating that level of recyclables either. We're finding that it's yard waste. So what we're helping customers do is take that trash bin that they've had for 10 years, change it to a yard waste bin, reduce the size of it, and then utilizing the trash and recycling barrel, they now are compliant with the new contract, and their bill is around $150 a month. That's the simple process. But they got to allow us to get through and meet with them and discuss it with them so we can explain it. And once they understand they're the customers that are saving the money right now. We're trying to get to all the customers as fast as possible, and we will get each and everybody's bill addressed and resolved as fast as we can. I can't guarantee a savings for every customer. Many customers haven't paid for services that they're currently getting. Many customers we still have to deal with are dealing with manure that they're putting in their trash bin, which is not an allowable practice. But we will deal with that over the next couple of months. Right now, we're just trying to deal with people's invoices and get their services adjusted, which we will. We apologize for that error of thinking that these were commercial customers, but there is one price for commercial dumpsters. It's just when we added on the commercial services to it, that's what made the bill so big. But we are adjusting it back to residential now.
So I'm hearing that you will, over the transition period, work with people to get the service correct, that you will rebill. So if the service was incorrect, right, you'll go back and rebill so people won't pay for something either they didn't get or they didn't need. Right?
Correct.
And then that people that have been using their dumpsters for yard waste, and again, no fault, I want to make sure this is clear, no fault of Ware, but, and maybe it was a bad time to do this, but the city did have to transition to the new laws around waste disposal, which Republic did not appear to be compliant with. So it's going to be a transition period for folks because Cal Recycle and the waste disposal legislation that's in front of the state does require the separation of waste. I know that where there's, again, as part of the transition period, I want to make sure I understand this, you are dumping everything into one container for the first month or two until, because I know that's what's happening on my private road, is that it's one truck that comes up and dumps everything in one container. I understood from Manny in particular, that was just a transitional issue, that eventually all containers will be picked up by a different truck in order to comply with California state law and the segregation of waste requirements. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Currently, the larger trucks that are picking up that are not on Scout service are getting 3 separate carts, are getting serviced by 3 separate trucks. So the trash is getting picked up by the trash truck, the recycling is by the recycling truck, and the green waste is by the green waste truck. Anybody that has Scout service, specialized services such as on your private road, are getting their materials mixed as of right now, just as if it was with the previous contractor. We will iron that out after we get the transition smoothed out and understand the private roads and the specialized services that each customer needs. Okay. And we will address that. We have plans to do so. We will comply with SB 1383. We're just trying to get everybody transitioned at this period of time.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Any other questions? And I think we can close out this item.
Yes, and I believe if residents here still have questions, Kevin, one of the customer service reps, is in the lobby right now helping out some residents, along with Manny, and I'm sure Mr. Ware as well will be able to continue to have that conversation with the residents out in the lobby area.
Okay. Brett? I guess I would say, if somebody really has a problem and can't seem to resolve it, if you'll send me an email, my email is public, and articulate what it is your problem is. I don't know if you want to, I know you gave your phone number for a while.
My phone number's out there. It was in the Heights Life, and encourage people to call me. And
if you take, well, I would like something in writing because I understand better. And I think between the two of us, if you totally don't get satisfaction, either going through the Ware customer service or contacting the city, I think we'll try to follow up and see if there's anything we can do. And thank you all out there in La Habra Heights land. I did hear from several people that it went well on their streets, but it obviously didn't go 100%. Okay, now we're going to go back up to the beginning of the agenda.
We have presentations and proclamations.
Yes.
I believe we still have Monica here.
I'm sorry?
The first one up is we just want to recognize the La Habra Heights Improvement Association for their hard work and dedication for the community yard sale. So earlier this month was the second annual community yard sale that was held at the park. So there was over 55 vendors, residents that were out with spaces and selling goods and items and things that were accessed from there. But this one was last year headed up by Susan Brooks, and also on a lot of the dedicated Improvement Association helped with it. This year they wanted to take over the event, and so they wholeheartedly took over the event. And during that time, a lot of their members of the Improvement Association spent quite a bit of time not only working with residents to take applications for the yard sale and get everything connected, associated, laying out all the spaces. I know Mayor Pro Tem Pespisa was out and helped with that aspect of it as well. And then day of at 2 for the morning, getting all the people into their spaces and done and connected. So it was a great event, and we just wanted to recognize them. So the council has given a nice dedication and proclamation for the Improvement Association for their hard work on the yard sale. So it was definitely a good event.
It was a very good event.
Yeah, I want to again thank Rick and Susan and all the rest of the Improvement Association folks that were out there. I know Rick had to leave early, and I know Susan was tied up tonight. I don't know if anyone from the association wants to give a pitch for...
We got Monica's left.
Monica, I don't know if you want to come up and just give a pitch real quick for the Halloween event, because I know that's a really popular event for the city, and maybe just go over to the...
Yes, we will be having our annual Halloween Hunt event on Halloween evening, and admission will be 1 bag of wrapped candy per child. There will be lots of games and prizes, and it's open to the community and the surrounding communities. So we hope to see you all there.
And
Thank
Monica,
you. Yes.
Do you want to pitch? Do you need help sitting up? And usually you set up.
You know what? We have a pretty good crew,
Do
but
you? Okay.
I know, people kind of pop in. So, if you don't have anything to do, you can pop in to see if we are short a few hands. It would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Puente Hills Habitat Preservation Authority Citizens Technical Advisory Committee report and vector control for the ever-patient Catherine Howen.
Good evening, Mayor Engelhardt, members of the council, staff, citizens of La Habra Heights. I, along with Roy Francis and Adam Nazaroff, are appointed by the City Council to represent the Citizen Tactical Advisory Committee for the Puente Hills Habitat Authority. And I am also been the liaison of the board since I've been on the CTAC, and I guess right now I'm the vice chair. The Puente Hills Habitat Preservation Authority celebrated their 30th anniversary last month. That's a milestone. And I want to thank Mayor Engelhardt for being there that evening, and I guess it was the afternoon, wasn't it? And did a presentation. Makes me very proud to see you there representing La Habra Heights. Now, the Puente Hills Habitat Authority does a lot of things in the background that many citizens may not be aware of. For example, protection from fire. How do they do this? I'm going to talk about 5 items and do just bullet points. Fuel clearance, extra clearance this year because the Habitat Authority received extra funds for this. They used goats to graze about 30 acres of Powder Canyon, removed 31 dead to hazardous trees in La Habra Heights, approximately 21 trees in northern Powder Canyon and 10 trees elsewhere in the city of La Habra Heights. The funding is very tight, so they had to do what they can. And this activity can be approved if they had more funds. The second item was the rangers surveying the hills for homeless encampments. The problem of homeless people moving into the hills has been an ongoing problem that is growing. If it wasn't for the rangers relocating these people, we would have large homeless population in the hills. The rangers have had to put out small fires near these homeless people, and they don't really advertise this that much, but that is a concern, and what would happen without their diligent surveillance of the area? The third item is that the rangers carry 100 to 200 gallons of water on their trucks in case they come across any problem where there could be a fire. The item 4 is the remediation of the hills. What I mean by that is to replace the combustive, non-native vegetation with native plants. The Habitat Authority even has a seed bank with seeds from native plants that grew in the preserve. Native plants take a little longer to start burning than vegetation like the non-native mustard plants that seem to be taking over the hills. And this activity is very time-consuming and costly. The Habitat Authority is behind in the remediation of vegetation in some areas due to the shortage of funds. The fifth item is that the trails need to be maintained. When we had all the rains this past year, many trails had failed. They needed to be restored and reinforced. Even in Powder Canyon, they had to rebuild up a few of the trails. Also, rangers widen the trails so emergency response vehicles can go down into them as far as they can go in the terrain. Talking about safety, the rangers monitor the activities on the hills and in the preserve. They are licensed peace officers as well. For an example, they do protect the wildlife activity. Some trails don't allow motorized bikes, and that is monitored by the rangers. Also, the trails could become overgrown very quickly and potentially disappear if the rangers were not actively monitoring the constant need for trimming of the vegetation. If we don't trim back that vegetation, those trails can fill in very quickly. It does require a great deal of resources to take care of the hills. Having a constant, reliable source of income would gain this ability to do more for the wildlife corridor and for the citizens who live in it or near it. Now, the community outreach and education, we'd like to do more about that. To understand wildlife, the Habitat Authority has educational activities like walks, lectures in schools, and other items like that. You might say, why am I mentioning all of this? Well, first of all, La Habra Heights is in the wildlife corridor. In a sense, we are in a wildlife preserve, and I was telling this to my neighbor who just moved in. We share the resources in the hills with the wildlife. The founders of La Habra Heights created the general plan to emphasize rural living, which is in keeping with the fact that we are in the wildlife corridor of California. And the second, of course, the Puente Hills Habitat Preservation Authority has measured pH on the ballot. Please make an informed decision on this measure. Visit online at habitatauthority.org. Go to About Us and click on History. Watch the video that is highlighting the Habitat Authority's milestones and accomplishments, such as trailhead openings, habitat restoration, and community outreach. My question is, if the Habitat Authority was not there, who would take care of the hills? I do encourage all residents to feel free to reach out to myself, Adam Nazaroff, or Roy Francis with any questions about the Habitat Authority. Any questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. And of course, I was also appointed by City Council to represent La Habra Heights in the Greater LA Vector Control Board of Trustees. First of all, I just want to point out that every time we have a meeting, you know, we talk about what different cities are doing, and they have been giving kudos several times to La Habra Heights for being so actively involved in the education of citizens and protecting La Habra Heights of mosquito-borne diseases. You know, whenever you have it on the guac, they actually put it up and show the people. La Habra Heights seems to be more active than other cities when it comes to mosquito-borne diseases and protection of them. So I wanted to give you an update on the activity of the mosquito-borne diseases. Dengue fever. Unfortunately, worldwide record dengue case numbers are tremendously increasing and putting our residents at risk for local transmission of the disease. This month, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health reported the first ever locally acquired case of dengue fever in Panorama City. That's a local mosquito that has given it to. What did the vector control do? They had staff get access to over 95% of the properties within a radius, I think it's like 150-meter radius area, to provide mosquito control as well as educational services. They did 3 nights of truck-mounted adulticizing and surveillance trapping in response to this historic event. The concern with dengue fever is that 80% of the cases are asymptomatic. We don't even know about them or if they're even out there. This year we had 68 cases of dengue fever. Last year there was only 12 cases that were reported. But what's worse than dengue fever is West Nile virus. A San Fernando Valley resident was the first person in LA County to die this year from West Nile virus. This is a mosquito-transmitted illness that can cause lethal inflammation in the brain. So far in 2024, there have been 14 confirmed human cases of the virus in LA County and 63 in the state. Last year, there was only 26. This year, there have also been deaths reported in Santa Clarita County, Contra Costa County, and Fresno County. And Orange County reported its first case of West Nile virus in August, and so far there's been no deaths there. West Nile virus is the most common mosquito-borne disease that harms residents in LA County. The disease lives in the infected birds, and it's transmitted to humans via mosquito bites. So take simple steps to protect yourself from mosquito bites. This includes using insect repellent, getting rid of items that hold standing water around the home, such as flower pots and bird baths, and using screens on doors and windows to keep mosquitoes out. If you have ponds, have one of the technicians from Vector Control come out and see if you need mosquito fish or if there's some way to get rid of any kind of potential growth of the larvae. And remember, when you call Vector Control, you call the LA Vector Control. You don't call the Orange County because La Habra Heights is in LA County. For more details or information, you can visit glamosquito.org. And that's my reports.
Thank you very much. Committee comments? City Council comments?
Yes, I have a request. Item 18, I request it be moved forward on the agenda. Jim Diker, who's volunteered to do the work, is present for questions. So out of courtesy to him, I ask it to be moved forward.
Anybody object? Sounds like a good idea. So that's number
18.
18. We'll move that forward if that's staff's ready.
I'll hand it over to Councilmember Brazazul. This is item. He'll be able to give you the background and the request.
Or maybe Mr. Diker could.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll make the introduction, then we can ask him questions. Basically, when the light and crosswalk were put in an East Road crossing Hacienda, we put in walk, don't walk signals and so forth, and control buttons both for pedestrians and for horses. Each side of Hacienda has 2 walk, don't walk push buttons, both one accessible, as I said, to pedestrians, one to horseback riders. And the front plate bears an image of a horse and rider indicating that this crosswalk is intended for equestrian as well as pedestrian use. Now, it is proposed that, unfortunately, the crosswalk's west end terminates in a 5-foot embankment at the edge of Hacienda. Not only does this prevent direct access to the park, the embankment is so close to the road pavement that it is virtually impossible for a horseback rider who has crossed over to the west side of the Hacienda to ride along Hacienda or go anywhere from that point without the risk of stepping into the oncoming traffic of a very heavily traveled road. Now, it is proposed that we construct an equestrian trail in compliance with the applicable requirements to enable park access from the west end of Hacienda Crosswalk. This equestrian trail would enter the park near the entrance to the horse arena. And also this access will mitigate the potential safety hazard created by having walk, don't walk lights in the crosswalk that encourages crossing the road and entering in a potentially unsafe area. Constructing this trail would be consistent, this very short trail would be consistent with Goal 6 of our general plan, encourage the expansion and use of the existing trail system for horseback riding, bicycling, and hiking, and several of our general plan policies, such as ERMI Environmental Resource Management Policy 22, identify the needs and possible locations for walking, bicycle, and equestrian trails in the city. Jim Diker, who many of you know, is a contractor who's done a lot of work in the city, and he's a longtime Heights resident who has owned horses for many years. He recently examined the proposed equestrian trail site and has volunteered to provide the necessary equipment and do the necessary labor in doing the grading and on the grading and related work at no charge to the city. I propose that we authorize the construction of this short equestrian trail, and Jim Diker is available for any questions. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Jim Diker?
Well,
I have a question of the city attorney.
yeah, this is government property, and how do you, it says with all applicable requirements.
Yeah, how do we, I mean, do we as a city, I mean, number one, I want to be real clear. I absolutely appreciate the offer.
Yeah.
And don't want to, I just want to make sure that both the city and Mr. Diker are protected for doing the work and ensuring that, you know, neither of us, the city nor Mr. Diker, incurs any type of liability from the performance of this work. So I guess the question is, do we need to do a simple design and present it to a professional engineer and get a stamp on it in order to protect all of us from any type of liability associated with the work that he's volunteering to do?
Right, so the first point, when I had talked to Norm about this last week, it is acceptable to get volunteer services on behalf of the city, both in the public works and the prevailing wage context. It would have to comply with legal requirements as far as potential equestrian trail ADA requirements, things of that nature. So we would have to have that reviewed, and if there was a design professional, then we would fit within an exception for design immunity of public works, which would give us litigation protection. But we wanted to have the concept of having, you know, volunteer work perform this signed off by the council first before we went into that minutia. That was the thought process.
Would that protect us and him? I know I had an issue on a trail by my house that was owned by both the city and the county.
Right.
And my insurance company basically warned me against doing any work on that trail because I could assume some level of liability for anything that I personally did on the trail to improve it. So well, I just want to make sure that we're protecting our resident from, you know, if something happens that, you know, someone can't sue the city, but then they decide to go after our volunteer.
Right, and depending upon how the council wants to go with this direction, generally work on public property unless there's a privity between the contractor and whoever suffered the alleged harm. There should not be liability, but I would have no problem authorizing or recommending that the city indemnify the individual. If we do inspect the work and it signs off and then the city has permit immunity for such work, that would be something acceptable to make sure the individual does not have any liability.
I just want to make sure, look,
Yeah.
I encourage volunteerism. Norm, thank you so much for, because we were struggling with this for like a year now of how to fix that intersection. I just want to make sure that we're protecting our volunteers.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you think there's a way to do this in which
I do.
we can, okay, good.
I do. But your recommendations of having it inspected, signed off, and approved, that is something we should do, correct.
Okay.
But the actual work can be performed by volunteers.
So will we, Norm, will
I
we
have-
get a chance to see, I'm excited about this. Is there a concept or can we do a job walk or something just to go out there and look at it and see what's going to get done?
Well, it's a relatively very short trail, about, on the order of 30, 40 feet or thereabouts. It's just going up the side of the hill from East Road up to the side of the hill into the park.
Okay. And materials-wise, does the city need to provide materials for the trail, like DG or something to reinforce the hillside? Because I imagine you have to cut into the hillside to get up there.
Yes.
Does he need
It's
railroad ties, or how are we going to do this?
It's a roughly 4.5 to 5 foot embankment.
Maybe we could have Jim come up and address some of these
maybe
issues.
the answer is he is a professional in this after all.
You available to comment, Jim? So you can describe a little bit about the elevation and all those things and how long it's going to be.
And I don't even, when you come across from going west, is it to the left or to the right?
Well, we would be going, the trail would be going north.
North.
So
To
it's
the right. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're crossing the street, it would be going up towards the buildings.
Okay.
And I assume it's going to go towards that opening in the fence that's already there? Is that where you're thinking?
Maybe not that far.
Okay.
30, 40, 50 feet, and it's not going to be ADA compliant. There's just no way to get it near that because it's just going to be a horse trail,
but
person trail.
we're designating it an equestrian trail, not a...
Right. It's an equestrian / biker.
Multi-purpose equestrian is sort of the term of art. And depending upon the geography, when I say ADA compliant, I mean compliant with also ADA exceptions, which could be some of the things we're talking about.
ADA compliant is 1 inch in 12 inches in slope, which there's no way you'll be able to get that.
For a normal pedestrian trail, you're absolutely
It will
right.
not be wheelchair accessible.
Understood.
So you're...
I know how to work that issue.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
No. So I just...
Not easy, huh?
So, no, sorry, I just want to make sure, I just want to also make sure that, obviously we need to put something down, like some DG or something on the trail.
Either DG or class 2 base, which is recycled concrete and stuff, and compact it, and then nature's going to take its course
And then what about the upslope side of the hill? Are we going to have to treat that?
We would cut into the hillside, and then where it makes you would need a retaining wall, we would just redig a new slope where there's no walls required.
And then put some grass on it or something?
Well, yeah, there's grass on there now. We're going to cut a trail, 30, 40 feet, whatever, and then just re-slope the hill. And then we say we can put some DG or class 2 base or class A 3/4 rock, whatever the city wants to buy. So I'm volunteering my time and my equipment.
Yeah. What would you just guesstimate-wise that you'd like us to approve on materials? What do you think the material cost would be? Just
$600-700.
So less than $2,500?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm volunteering my time for free.
No. I just want to make sure that we give the city, that we give staff what they need so that we can get this done.
And there's going to need to be some sort of fence. There's going to be one of the rails is going to be open. I don't know if you want to have some sort of equestrian type fence that, you don't want the gate to be left open because that will let horses from the arena, if it got loose, it would be you could get down to the traffic. So that there would have to be, where we go from the bottom up to the top to the fence, there would need to be some sort of gate that's accessible.
I think there's already an opening.
Well, it's because something's destroyed or been misused, or it's not a it's not a purposely made opening. I don't think.
I think, yeah, so
There-
we would
there
need
is a
mon-
small- there is
we
like
need
a
money
small
for
amount of it.
some fencing, it sounds like, money for some
I think the
base
fencing. I
material.
think the fencing has been knocked down. I think that one section.
Yeah, there's a small gap, a little bit farther away from
Right,
kind
but
of where
we
you
don't.
guys
Yeah,
are.
we don't want to make the trail all the way to that point. We want to, take one other section out or make some sort of hinging or something.
So what do you think, 2,500, 5,000?
Well, and Mayor Pro Tem, if I could just say, we put this on just sort of as an approval in concept. So I don't think we really need any money approval right now. I mean, let us figure out the best way to do it so we can utilize the volunteer services, like you mentioned, so he's protected. I mean, if you want to throw out some approvals, that's fine, but it'll be coming back for finalization.
And there'll probably be other volunteers that might want to help build a little wood fence, that's equestrian. I mean, I'm not really into horses. My daughter and wife are, and they now live in Norco, but I still have friends that have horses. So,
Horses are mean. I'm just kidding.
No, in France, they eat them.
My horse was
And
mean.
when times get rough, I'll be eating them too.
I think it's good to ask the cost before we.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm just saying, we don't need approval. It's a concept for your consideration, not a specific.
And then who would draw up the specs or whatever you?
Well, Raffaello and I are going to figure out whether we can use an on-call or something to do that. Yeah.
What about the export of the soil?
We would just, I was thinking when I was talking with Norm at the garage sales, I had 2 spots there. We just take it up and spread it out up under the trees.
Okay, so there's enough.
There's nothing hauled off-site. It would just be transferred, and then I would spread it out with the little bobcat that I have, and it would just, pine needles would grow back on top of it from the
Okay.
trees. Nothing hauled away, nothing.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, where were we? Are we done with city council comments now?
You don't need a motion or anything, right?
We got direction. I understand. We're going to move forward. It'll
Move
come
forward,
back.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we
Thank
need to
you.
pick up the pace here. City manager's report.
City manager's report, we are going to be doing a Hacienda Road cleanup. So those that are interested in it, it will be this Saturday. If you haven't already talked with Mr. John Dominguez, please reach out to him. Lots of you have his phone number. You can also email beautifylhh@gmail to get connected with Mr. Dominguez, and we will look forward to seeing you on Saturday morning.
At 6:30?
I believe 6:30, we're going to be meeting here at City Hall like we did last time, and then heading out to our locations on Hacienda.
Okay. Anything else for city manager?
That's all.
Okay, city attorney.
We did have closed session. On one item, there's no reportable action. On the other item, the city did authorize on a vote of 301 with Larity absent and Zazula abstaining, entry into a stipulation with HCD to resolve housing element issues. That is all.
Community development report.
We've been very busy. Your report is in there. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
Questions? Okay, fire chief's report.
Good evening, council. We had a pretty light month since last month. We're down to 53 calls, I believe, this month, which is down from 60. So that's good. There's been a lot of movement in the fire department this last month. Number one, we went online with tablet command. Both me and the deputy chief are now in concert with the county fire department. We're all on the same platform where we're looking at response information and all the area units that the county has come up on this new program that I purchased called Tablet Command. We get notified by pager, and then it also comes up on our iPads in our vehicles, and so it gives us routing information, what units are responding, timeout information, what the CAD information is, what our incident number is. Very, very useful for us. Also, Image Trend. We were in a contract with Image Trend for a thing called Slate, which was costing us about $5,000 a year. We never used it. It was put in place by the former administration. I was able to get that erased from our bill And with the cost savings, I went ahead and purchased what's called PS Tracks. It's a documenting platform software that will cover, that documents use and inventories of controlled drugs, SCBAs, or breathing apparatus. They have to be checked daily, plus they have hydrostatic tests and annual servicing that needs to be done. All that's being tracked through PS Tracks. Our PPS, our personal protective equipment, our PPEs, that gear, ALS supplies, and also apparatus, daily apparatus checks are all going to be online with PS Tracks. You do it on the kids that we have working for us, all of our volunteers, they're much more tech savvy. So they use their telephone to do to do all the checking and checklists, and then it goes up to a cloud. If we ever need to get a report, then we can just bring it down from the cloud and provide it to anyone. Succession planning, as you know, Al Alcalde is looking to leave. We have one of our internal members is learning all of the ins and outs of the BCP program here. And so that there'll be a seamless transition in January when Mr. Alcalde leaves. Genesis. So I'm sure you've heard of Genesis. I have good news. Genesis has now been published, and all the 5 zones are now have been published. So they come up when we bring up Genesis, our zones are now in the program. We're planning on a tabletop exercise for Genesis on December 17th. And then a functional exercise on January 21st, and we're going to test the community alert system here, Nexel. We'll be testing that. Currently, we are conducting an apparatus 1A and 1B class this month. We just finished 1A. 1B will be done by the end of this week, so that it's going to give us 10 new qualified drivers for the fire engines out there. I just got back from the LAFCA conference, the LA Area Fire Chiefs Conference in Indian Wells. That was between October 8th and 11th. I did interface with Chief Maroney, and we can maybe talk closed session later or maybe behind the scene as far as funding, because we did not get the grant. We tried to get a grant for about $400,000 to purchase PPEs, sets of turnouts for our members. But we were unsuccessful. A set of turnouts is about $4,000. Chief Maroney informed me that nowadays what they're doing is everyone gets custom fit for a PPE. So they come out, they measure, and each person that gets issued a set of PPE, it's specifically measured for them. Of course, the situation we have here at La Habra Heights is that we have a turnover of about 80% a year. We just can't do that. That's just not feasible here. So we need to have enough extra turnouts sitting in the Conex containers so that we can issue those to our new members when they come on board, and then take those PPEs back when they leave and move on, and then reissue them. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that offline. The new fire engine. The new fire engine, there's going to be a little bit of a delay. We had planned to go back to Wisconsin to look at the new fire engine at the end of this month. It looks like we might not be able to do that till later in November. And we're expecting the new fire engine to be delivered sometime in late December or in mid-January. The good news for our recruiting efforts is that we now have over 70 fire personnel and volunteers working for the La Habra Heights Volunteer Fire Department, which means that we have up to 8 to 10 people every day working out of the fire station. That means that we can respond both Engine 771 and Engine 772 as needed, and it's a far cry from where we were when I first got here, where we were barely able to keep people on the rig. I think Chief Martin's recruitment efforts have been paying dividends for us. We have full staff right now. I haven't seen that in a while. Also, we are maintaining ALS every day, 2 paramedics a day, consistently for the last 6 months. So we're not getting any complaints from the neighboring cities or the district, the fire district. So we are now fulfilling our obligations with the Department of Health Services or the EMS authority. If there are any other questions, let me know. I think this is all good news.
Very positive. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sheriff's Department report.
Yes, ma'am. We had one grand theft, a vehicle, a generator belonging to the water district last month. Luckily, the vehicle or the generator had a tracker, and we recovered it 3 hours later. We had 2 residential burglaries and 1 grand theft of property. Just a warning to the community, please. If you're going to go on vacation or leave your residence for a while, do not put it on any kind of social media site because there's people out there looking for that information. And one of the reports I took last month, somebody in the household told a friend through a social media site that they were going on vacation. And while they were gone, we generated a report for burglary. So keep your plans private, please. No social media. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Proceeding to the consent calendar, does anyone wish to pull any item? Could I have a motion?
Move approval 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 of the consent calendar.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Pespisa? Mr. Zazula?
Yes.
Mr. Pespisa?
Yes.
Englehart's a yes, and Bergman?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 15. Water pipe at the park.
Thank you, Mayor. The La Habra Heights County Water District received a notice that there was a break or an issue with the main water line at the park. So they reached out to us to let us know, and they went out and did a little quick investigation to see where it was. It turned out to be on our side of the meter. So we had to move forward with making an emergency repair of that main line because there were several park rentals lined up. There was actually a fundraiser for a nonprofit scheduled for that weekend, so we had to move forward with making the repair. So the city contracted with Coleman Landscape to make the repair of the main water line. They ended up finding several pinholes and areas in a 2-inch copper mainline area. So they went in and replaced that particular line to get us back up and running, and hopefully won't have any issues in the future. Due to the cost of it being over our signing authority, we have to bring it back to the city council as an emergency work. So the recommendation to council tonight is to receive and file the report as a public record showing the nature of the emergency and the city manager's authorization to proceed with the provision of the city's purchasing policy, section 2.10.100C, and public contracting code section 22050, and authorize the finance manager to amend the budget for $12,170 and account number 101-450 PWD 6610 for the mainline repair by Coleman Landscaping. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
Any questions? May I have a motion?
Make a motion that we receive and file the report as written, that we authorize, that we authorize the finance manager to amend the budget by the amount indicated, $12,170 in the account indicated, and for the mainline repair by Coleman's Landscape.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Englehart's a yes. Mr. Pespisa?
Yes.
And Mr. Zazula?
Yes.
Okay, item 16.
Item 16 before you tonight is a proposal for the design for the fiscal year 2023-24 and 24-25 street improvement projects that will be zone 3 and 5. So the city works with our subconsultant on a proposal type basis to move forward with designs. This is related to our street improvement projects. We have worked to combine 2 years into one project. So this particular project will cover 2 sections and 2 areas, and 2 years worth of work into one to see if we can gain some economies of scale. This was a recommendation brought forward by the Roads Committee to the council previously, and they recommended that we move forward with this particular process. So that combined project, budget-wise, for the street repair maintenance, it has a total budget of $1,416,341. There is plan specification engineering, the design proposal of it, we have budgeted $123,160 for the project. There's also a construction management and inspection for the project is budgeted of $184,740 for a total for the 2-year combined budget for the street project of just over $1.7 million for it. The Roads Advisory Committee has spent quite a bit of time recently going through the plans, going through those 2 sections, looking at the street sections to make a good proposal of the areas that we feel should be able to need the most amount of work and repair to be done, and also look at what, based off of recent proposals, we could actually do within our budget constraints for actual construction costs for it. So that is that. So we've reached out to our consultant to provide a proposal for it. As attachment 1 is the proposal for it is a combined for the 2 years, that 2 projects in 1 design proposal for it. So they've provided a total proposal cost of $158,700. For that, I know you guys have received some comments related to the cost of the proposals for it. So if you look back at some of the past years that we've done design proposals for it, so in the 2021 project, design proposal is $78,500. Our 21-22, the design proposal was $64,700. Our last project, the 22-23, with the design proposal was $79,500. This one, if you look at it, is 2 projects in 1, so it is 2. So if you split this total cost into 2 projects that we would be normally doing, it works out to be about $79,350 if we were doing each project individually, which is fairly consistent with what we have seen cost-wise as far as proposals from NV5 related to the design of street improvement projects. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The dark black area is what's going to be redone. That's correct, right?
Correct. On the plans, those are the areas where they're slated for improvements. So those are the areas that will be, all of those sections would be designed. Grind and overlay is the proposed treatments for those areas.
And obviously, I'm sure the roads committee's looked at it and talked about it and everything, but that's Dorothea Road that's tough, and I'm really concerned about the grubbing back and the sloughage and all those things.
That stretch of Dorothea in particular is one that it's going to take quite a bit of attention to be paid to what needs to be repaired. Sloughing is pretty significant in some areas along that roadway.
They talked about any retention at all along there, or just grubbing it out?
We have talked a little bit about the potential for retention along the side, but once we get into the design and actually cut back in to see how far we need to cut back some of those areas, that will lead into the discussion of any sort of other potential things that may be needed.
In my opinion, it's the worst road in the city to try to manage, but okay.
Are there any other questions of staff?
Just a more, I guess, nebulous question about NV5 and engineering services. We spend a lot of money with them. Have we looked at bringing this work in-house as a option? I mean, this right here, this amount right here is probably in excess of an FTE.
We would have to look at it if we want to hire a city engineer on staff.
But I mean, we're almost paying for it though, right?
Yes.
And I assume that this isn't a full year's worth of work.
No, and the total cost is billable, so it's not a guaranteed, like, that's the amount of money. It is, as we go through the process, it's hour-based, so it's not guaranteed that it's going to be $158,000.
So in their history with us, is it ever less?
It has been less, especially when we've looked at some of our past CMN inspection, they have been less. A lot of times design typically does come in less. The last one we did was over, but we ended up redesigning that one a couple of times as we went through with the roads committee, and then after we had that really high bid, we went back and scaled that project, so we had to do more work to repackage that project down to it.
All right. It's something I think we need to just keep our eye on, because this seems like probably the 5th or 6th time we've had a conversation about the amount of money MV5 in particular is charging the city for work. So I don't know if there's enough work there to justify bringing this in-house, but I mean, if I recall correctly, I think they were charging us $40,000 for the ramp over at the park. So when we look at...
Right, and they wanted 25,000 or something for the paving around the helihydrant to design that.
So I'm just, I think it's worth maybe just thinking about that and seeing if that is a position that we want to think about, given that none of this work is going to go away.
We don't ever take bids on these? I know you favor working with them because they know the heights, but there's other engineering firms.
There are other engineering firms out there. We could go through the RFP process and put it out and have people bid and choose from another company to do it.
Isn't this the one that was that a different project where they reduced their rate on it, or is this
That's the project they're doing right now.
Yeah, the 158, so they did come down in their price considerably.
So when we did the CMN inspection for the project that kicked off today, and we kicked off the roads project today, they did come back and went through it as they did this proposal as well. I worked with them on that aspect of it as well to try to scale it back down and make sure it is what it needs to be, no additional fluff or extras or above and beyond what really needs to be in there.
Are there any more questions? I do have one card for public comment. Okay, we'll open it up. Sabrina Valentine.
I just wanted to comment that I still have not seen a traffic light or three-way stop on Hacienda and Avocado Crest that I believe was approved in January of 2020. And I understand there was delay with the pandemic, but it's still not even been started.
It was supposed to start the end of this month, Mr. Rafferty. I'm sorry, Mr. Woldridge.
So that one, it is in the works. So the council has awarded a contract for the company that is going to be doing the construction and installation to it. They have completed the potholing to make sure that everything will work. Poles and equipment and everything is on order, so we're waiting for all those things to come in. The contractor has been looking at start times of actual, like when they're going to go out to do the curb ramps and those aspects of it. It was supposed to be starting in October and November, and then it got shifted to February. We were back to January. Right now we're actually, earlier today, having a conversation with the contractor of having them actually start in November to do the actual concrete part of it. So run the conduits, put all that part of it in, potentially the end of November, starting that construction part of it. But the biggest aspect is we're waiting on poles, the traffic controller, and the cabinets. There's just long lead times on those ones, but yeah.
Thank you. So I'll pull it back to the council. So do we want to look at this further? Make the award? Tell them to go back and sharpen the pencil again?
Well, I think the Roads Committee has thoroughly looked at this and discussed it, and you're talking about 2 years of projects here going into one, so I mean, I think we should move forward on it myself.
May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the design of fiscal year 2023 and 2024/25 street improvement projects for Zone 3 and Zone 5.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Zazula?
Yes.
Mr. Paspiza?
Yes.
Englehart's a yes, and Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
17, project updates. Does anybody have any questions on these? Do we want to?
So I just have one question for the chief. Do we know what the delays are on the engine? I mean, it was supposed to be here in August, and now we're heading into next year, it sounds like.
That's correct.
And is the manufacturer giving us a reason why that? Is there a supply chain issue, or are they just behind, or what's the?
At the LAFCA conference, there were representatives from Pierce at the. They have vendors that come, and Pierce was one of them. There's a 3-year waiting list for a custom ordered fire engine. So the fact that we were able to get something that they had off the shelf, to still use the Archuleta funds and still be able to utilize that money to purchase something without the 3-year delay, I think we're fortunate. And my thought is that this kind of thing, I would always kind of take anything that the manufacturer says with a little grain of salt. It's being worked on, but a month delay, 2-month delay on just actual delivery. There's still a lot more that needs to be done once we get the fire engine, i.e. equip it and get all of the brackets put in for all the different equipment that's going to go on it. So we were supposed to go in October at the end of this month back to Wisconsin to see what the progress is. So the fact that we're only going to be delayed a couple weeks for the trip, I think that's pretty fair. But I don't know what the reasoning is. Probably they're overloaded, I think, with orders.
Okay. Have we seen any evidence that it actually exists? I mean, are they sending you pictures of it, or?
I haven't seen any pictures of it, but I will look into if they could take a screenshot of it or take a digital picture of it. I'll talk to Ed about it tomorrow.
And then, Rafferty, are we keeping Archuleta's team aware of the progress? I mean, are they still tracking the grant? And
we haven't had a conversation recently with them, but as we are nearing more of a delivery timeline, actually, Tom and I were just talking about reaching out with them and looking at, once we know we're going to have it, and scheduling an event that we can do for delivery of the engine, introduce it to the community, and also thank Senator Archuleta at that event. So as we kind of are narrowing down on when we should actually be getting it, we're going to start those conversations a little more robustly about it.
I just remember a year or so ago, there was a lot of focus on making something happen quickly with that money. So I just want to make sure that we're meeting the senator's expectations around keeping him informed of the progress. So I don't want another surprise in the near future where he gets upset because we haven't been talking to him.
We did recently have, there was an event, and we were able to speak with the senator briefly at the event about the engine and all the things coming along.
Okay.
This is probably sort of silly, but I know that our Mr. Norton was, our Chief Norton was instrumental in helping get this. And did you know they actually have to match the paint to our existing engines, the different color reds?
Yeah, we did provide them with the paint chip for that, and they're going to paint it exactly the same color as the Timberwolf, I believe.
Who knew? All right. Any individual council member information items or reports? Any public comments on items not on the agenda? We're adjourned. Thank you all. I wonder if Mr. Ware still